And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, February 27th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat. If you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast, it makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we are going to start off the show. We're going to take a look at the NFL report card grades, the NFL Players Association report card grades for each team. What were some of my takeaways from it, the biggest surprises to come out of it, and all that. So we'll get into that in just a second. We'll also talk about the Detroit Pistons, as they have now won 8 straight games. They defeated the Celtics last night in a 20-point win. So we'll talk about that and some of the other NBA action as well, including the Knicks winning a nail-biter against the 76ers. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into talking about Matthew Stafford more. It's becoming more like the Brandon Ayuk situation from last year, where we're just constantly talking about it. But a couple of things I wanted to get into. The Raiders, supposedly Tom Brady, is really making a push to try to get Stafford. And, from what we're hearing at the Combine, according to reports, Matthew Stafford is a top priority for the Giants. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about what teams in Major League Baseball are primed to bounce back in 2025. And then in the final part of the show, I will continue my season overviews for every team in the NFL, and we will be talking about the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles and, go over their season and what lies ahead in the offseason. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the report card grades around the NFL. So I believe we talked a little bit about this last year when I was doing the football podcast, but there are some things that I wanted to get into. There were some teams that made major strides from last year to now. In 2024, so these are a few teams. So the Chargers, they jumped from 30th in the NFL last year to 5th. The Falcons improved from 25th to 3rd. The Commanders jumped from 32nd to 11th. For the second straight year, the Dolphins and the Vikings ranked 1st and 2nd among the teams. And you also had the Raiders that were up there in the top 5. Last season, it was the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Packers, the Eagles, and the Jaguars. They received the highest overall grades from players. Now, I wanted to talk about a few things. First of all, one of my biggest takeaways is the owner grades. So there was an owner that did get an F, and that was Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson received the worst grade out of any owner in the NFL. And, players saying he does not contribute to a positive team culture. And also, J.C. Treader, who's part of this process, he basically said that the Jets have a culture of fear. I think that's how it was put. And this year, or should I say last year, was really eye-opening for me when it came to the Jets, and how eye-opening it was that Woody Johnson, he is not looked at in a favorable light. With all the stuff all the reports that were coming out throughout the year with, Madden ratings, and, he wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers after a Week 4 loss to the Broncos, firing Robert Saleh in the middle of the year, which at the time I was on board with that, but look at how things turned out afterwards. There's a lot of things that you looked at when it came to the Jets, and Woody Johnson was at the forefront of it. And he got the worst grade. Now, you had some other owners that, graded low as well. David Tepper of the Panthers, he got a D-. The Cardinals owner got a D-. Robert Kraft also got a D. And same with the Steelers as well. Robert Kraft, it was interesting what was said about him in the report. If I could pull it up uh, while I'm talking here. But, when you look at the Patriots, they were successful for so long. And, now with these report card grades coming out, it's just eye opening when you see that Robert Kraft gets a D like that. And, to kind of look at it more specifically, so Patriots were ranked 31st among teams. So ownership 29th, that was their ranking. So Robert Kraft's average rating for perceived willingness to invest in the facilities was a 6.15 out of 10 from Patriots players, a ranking of 28 out of 32 owners in the league. And when you think of Robert Kraft, you think of all the Super Bowls that they won. But since then, not so much. The players feel that Kraft slightly contributes to a positive team culture, a rank of 30 out of 32 owners. And the players feel that Kraft is somewhat committed to building a competitive team, a rank of 30 of the 32 NFL owners. And for head coach, Gerard Mayo got a B+. 93% of players feel that former head coach Gerard Mayo was efficient with their time, a rank of 20 out of 32. The players felt that Mayo was moderately receptive to locker room feedback on the team's needs, ranking him 19 of 32 head coaches in the league. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background, but it happens. But yeah, the Patriots, they did not receive a great rating. They were 31st out of 32 teams. Now, you figure with Mike Vrabel coming in, and maybe with how they graded, you would think that this would change. But, a lot of it has to do with ownership, and Robert Kraft has to change some things up. So then I wanted to look at the rest of the ratings here. But, yeah, the Dolphins, they got all A's. And the Vikings, they were right behind them. And when you look at now I wanted to take a look at the head coaches as well. So Dan Quinn was number one. And that's very impressive. The Commanders, they made a huge jump. I talked about it before. Another way of the Commanders to stick it to me for not, ranking them, giving them a good ranking last year when I was predicting their season and how they were going to go. But, I mean, look, I have, admitted I was wrong plenty of times. And he got a full 100% of his players feeling he was efficient with their time. They also ranked him first in the league in terms of being receptive to locker room feedback on the team's needs. That's very important when it comes to being a head coach. And you see how the Commanders did. They really turned things around. And it's not even just on the field. It's off the field as well. They went through a lot of changes. Ownership down. And they're going to be a good team for a while. And also other coaches that received A+ as well. You had Raheem Morris. He received an A+. And it's interesting because I did think about this. What would Bill Belichick have gotten had he taken the job for the Falcons? Now, I heard, when I was watching the Rich Eisen show, they had Chris Russo on, and, he talked about the Falcons and how, they kind of made a mistake not hiring Belichick. And right now, I think it's too soon to tell, because I think had the Falcons gotten better quarterback play, they'd probably make the playoffs. They were, what were they, 6-3? And then Kirk Cousins just, I don't know what happened. He wasn't playing well. And they missed the playoffs. And maybe if they would have went to Michael Penix sooner, maybe they would have gotten in. Now, they still had a chance to. Last week of the season, they still had a chance to. But they ended up losing to the Panthers, and the Bucs ended up coming back against the Saints and winning that game. But That's still good though. That Raheem Morris was able to get an A+. The players love him, and going into next year, full year Michael Penix. Let's see what the Falcons got. Kevin O'Connell got an A+. Andy Reid got an A+. Dan Campbell got an A+. Mike McDaniel again gets an A+. A lot of A's. Jonathan Gannon an A. Mike Tomlin an A. Zach Taylor an A. Shane Steichen, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. I would have thought McVay would get an A+. Mike McDonald. Mike McCarthy even got an A. And you could see, towards the end of the year, the Cowboys really were playing hard for McCarthy. They were. They beat the Buccaneers, they beat the Commanders, and this is with all the injuries that they were dealing with. But I don't want to go through all of them. But the lowest ratings for head coaches, you had the Browns got a C. So Kevin Stefanski, who won Coach of the Year in 2023, he ends up getting a C. Doug Peterson got a C, and Matt Eberflus got a C. But there was nothing lower than that. And another surprise, some teams got Fs when it came to traveling. Like the Eagles, they just won the Super Bowl, and they got an F for traveling. Patriots got an F. And the Bills got an F-. So they got to work on that. But that's really all I wanted to get into. I could definitely go into more depth in the coming weeks, but the main things I wanted to touch upon was, the Robert Kraft getting a low grade and Woody Johnson just getting a straight up F for ownership. And but let me know what you guys think. If you were able to take a look at it, you could go on the NFL Players Association website and they have all the grades. I mean, because we could break this down and be talking for hours, but, we don't have that much time. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show now, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Detroit Pistons knocking off the Celtics last night. They have now won 8 straight, so we'll get into that and some of the other NBA action from last night as well. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.